I ain't no effing robot, okay? Let me run.
Touchdown! What the man says here is what you'll do.
You had an attitude, and you got to play with an attitude when you're a guy of his size.
They tried to kill the president down here. What make you think they won't shoot my black ass?
You didn't look for Wes Dorsett to die.
When he saw Tony playing football, he was a proud man. He was happy.
I wish my dad had been around to experience some of the things I've experienced.
I think he made the game look a little too easy sometimes.
This is Tony Dorsett. Beyond the glory.
Absolutely outstanding. Unbelievable. Do you have anything to say to your fans?
In 1978, Tony Dorsett was in a class all by himself.
Down the near sideline of the 40, cuts back to the middle of the field. He makes it all the way.
In the span of just 2 years, he'd been crowned college football's all-time leading rusher.
Here comes Dorsett, goes off right tackle, and look at that fella turn on the speed.
He'd won a national championship.
Dorsett on his feet into the end zone. The Panthers are number one.
And posed for the Heisman Trophy.
It's an honor to be the recipient of the Heisman Trophy.
He'd stormed into Dallas, earning the title Offensive Rookie of the Year.
Roger hands it off to Dorsett, into the secondary, to the 30, 35, to the 40, cuts right, watch out! To the 50, the 40, he's to the 30, the 20, the 10, the 5, Tony Dorsett, touchdown!
TD had scored one in a Super Bowl.
Tombach gives the ball, and it is a Dallas touchdown by Tony Dorsett.
And he'd taken home a ring.
The Dallas Cowboys are the champions of the National Football League.
Pound for pound, Tony Dorsett may have been the best pure football player on the planet.
I played 183 pounds.
Touchdown of 73 yards.
That's small. By any standard, whether my era, this era, any era. Well, a little man has been able to play a game with all these big people and have that type of success. Name me one.
You got a guy who was 5'11", and I'm giving him some credit there. But, you know, here's a guy that every time he touched the ball, he could take it the distance.
We knew he had the speed, but he ran inside tough.
5 on the field, 30, here he goes!
He really ran hard inside, which showed that he could do it all.
In January of 1979, Touchdown Tony and the Dallas Cowboys came to South Florida to defend their title. The team across the sideline had a few titles of their own.
As a kid growing up, it was always you wanted to wear the black and gold. I was a big Steeler fan, and being at the University of Pittsburgh and being part of the City of Champions.
This was the chance to dominate the 70s, and we were really, really a good team.
Pass receiving.
It would have been the first team to win 3 Super Bowls.
Everyone knows that Pittsburgh...
In a grudge match for a decade of bragging rights, Tony lived up to his billing.
Wide. Look at that.
This guy was really carrying the weight on that offensive side.
Dorsett having a field day.
The decision was made to change the offense philosophy to fit one guy.
Dorsett, he can get that guy. Look out.
Running the ball, getting the yardage, making the tough plays. It was Tony Dorsett.
I carried the ball about 8 to 9 times in the first quarter. You look at it, boom, 10 yards, boom. 20 yards, boom, 15 yards.
In the final seconds of the first half, Pittsburgh had scored to take the lead. The Steelers had stolen the momentum and effectively taken the ball out of TD's hands.
Once we got behind, we were forced to throw a lot more.
I'll never forget a lot of the Steelers saying, man, well, you're the highest paid decoy we ever seen.
Behind Staubach's arm, the Cowboys launched a furious comeback bid. But it would not be enough.
I think that was probably the most disappointing loss I've ever had.
I never understood why they stopped running me in that game. It was very mind-boggling to me, even to this day, while we got away from the run.
The Super Bowl trophy would go back to Pittsburgh. Touchdown Tony Dorsett, the pride and joy of Aliquippa, Pennsylvania, would never have the chance to run for a ring again.
Some of the colors, man, are just unbelievable, man. So bright and beautiful. And if you ever see it from your plane, man, it's really beautiful. About the only beauty that's left in Aliquippa is the color of the trees.
It's been more than a decade since Tony scored a touchdown in the NFL. He looks no worse for wear, despite a dozen bruising seasons as a target for defenders. His hometown has not held up nearly as well.
It was a jumping little town when we had a couple of theaters down there and everything down there. And it started moving out.
Aliquippa, 19 miles from Pittsburgh, was a steel town.
There's a lot of businesses have not been able to survive since they closed down the steel mills.
Thousands of men, like Tony's father, made their way to western Pennsylvania nearly a century ago. Looking for work, they found a way of life.
All of our fathers worked for the steel companies. A lot of the guys, myself included, Tony, I'm sure we thought one day we'd probably end up in the mills too.
Aliquippa was a company town, forged from the success of Jones and Laughlin Steel.
That's where everybody was waiting to go. Grew up, go to the mill, buy a car and all that, you know. Dad never went to school a day in his life, but was full of wisdom for me. He said, you know, this is not a place you want to be. He said, you come in here, there's no guarantee you're going to come out. I mean, and if you do, you may be missing an eye, you may be missing an arm, you may be missing a finger, a leg, a foot. That one conversation stuck with me for forever. I'm gonna take y'all out to where I was raised, man, out of the projects that we got out here.
Aliquippa was a melting pot of ethnic groups, a hillside collection of government-owned housing projects known as plans.
Mount Vernon Drive was pretty much black community, and that was Plan 11. Plan 12 was the Caucasian community.
Wes and Myrtle Dorsett raised 7 children on this street. Tony was the youngest boy.
My dad gave us all nicknames. I had 4 older brothers. Hawkeye was actually my nickname.
If you notice, he stretches his eyes a lot when he talks.
Yeah, he do have some big eyes. He can stretch them. That's where the legendary stories about my dad Wes taking my 4 of my older brothers out there thinking they were so fast, he got a switch. And he said, every time I get close to you guys, I hit you with the switch. That didn't last very long.
The Dorsetts got their speed from their dad because he used to always, when he had to whoop me, he had to chase him.
Tony's best friend from Mount Vernon Drive is Mike Kimbrough.
What you doing, man? What you wearing, man?
That took me a lot of first thing to go. What's my mind?
Huh?
I was up there
What you doing upstairs?
watching cartoons.
Although they lived in Plan 11, the school district split their neighborhood down the middle. Tony and Mike were bused to a predominantly white school in nearby Hopewell.
Some of Mount Vernon people went to Aliquippa. And some went in Hopewell. They used to say if you go upstairs to use the bathroom, you're in Aliquippa. You come back down, you're in Hopewell.
I went to school in one world, but when I was through with school, I came back to what I call the real world, my world, back to the community, to the hood.
Well, I'm gonna hit you. Okay. You don't think I can hit you? I'll bet you.
The sports star in the Kimbrough house is Mike's youngest son, Verquan. Professional boxer, he's undefeated after 5 fights.
I hit you in your head. I promise you. I promise you.
Oh, you got it.
Huh?
If you can't take no punch,
I'm gonna let you hit me because I'm gonna be without a headgear on. I just want to get one just to get you one for your mom. Just for your mother. Just for your mother, boy. Yeah, I would have. Come back home.
For decades, the only sport that mattered in this part of the country was played between the lines.
When I started playing football, I was just afraid to get hit.
He outran everybody, believe me, he did. The opponents trying to catch him, they couldn't do it. They couldn't do it.
What's up, man? How you doing, man? Yeah. Good to see you, man. Who is this here?
That's my grandson.
What you doing, man?
Yeah, that's not Shake's son.
He played for the Dallas
What's your name?
He used to play for the Dallas Cowboys.
Michael.
Michael. Oh, okay.
He liked Pittsburgh.
Touchdown Tony Dorsett wasn't much bigger than Michael when he first tried to play the game. He and childhood friend Mike Kimbrough conspired to get on the football field together.
First year, you know, we went up to Hopewell and they said that we was too little. We were too light. So we went that following year, you know. Me and Tony, we said, well, we ain't gonna be too little this time.
But we came back, we put rocks in our pockets, you know, so we could try to make the weight, and we were still too light.
They came of age in Aliquippa, Pennsylvania. Their fathers worked in the J&L steel mill, and their heroes played football.
First and 10 as the football for Hopewell's at their own 49. Sweep left, breaks it in. First down and more as Hopewell is driving now.
That was a way of life to go to Friday night football games. It was something that people looked all week towards.
The steel mills have closed down, but football remains a passion in this part of the country.
Let me shake your hand. What's your name, sir?
How are you doing, sir?
I'm doing fine. What's your name?
Josh Pregor.
Josh, it's good to see you, Josh.
Tony first became a star in a Vikings uniform for Hopewell High, a predominantly white high school a mile and a half from his home in Aliquippa.
Yeah, take it about. They call it laying big wood. You laying big wood on them.
Laying wood?
Laying wood, big wood.
Tony probably was the smallest at the particular time that when I got him up here to the high school level to play. He weighed approximately about 147 pounds, soaking wet.
What he lacked in size, he made up for with speed and heart.
I got started when one game I was out for the kickoff team, and just my luck, kickoff comes straight to me, man. And I got this ball, just because of fear, and I was just afraid to get hit. I took off, I was like a little rabbit, man.
That's when they discovered how good Tony was, because he was good.
Gets the block from Kelly. Nice kick out blocking it.
He was good.
Three guys got it. Inside. Breaks through. And he might go into the end zone.
He was very physical, fast, good agility, smart, tough. Nice guy off the field, but on the field he had an attitude, and you got to play with an attitude when you're a guy of his size.
And when people ask me about Tony, I think the chief thing that he had within him was the inner pride factor. Whenever he did anything, he put his mind to it and he went out and accomplished it.
Pocket breaks down, he's going to run with the football. Gets around
The Hopewell Vikings would lose just 2 games in the 2 years that Tony Dorsett played tailback.
One game that Tony got hurt his junior year cost us from being undefeated. We got hit in the head, and the doctor said I'd be cautious about playing in the second half. And Tony started to do a little ranting and raving. His father came to the locker room, and he told Tony, what the man says here is what you'll do.
My dad was an intimidating man for me when I was a kid growing up. He struck fear. I was afraid of my dad for a very long time.
Before Tony started playing football, my dad never took an interest, it seems like, in what we were doing, you know, because he was so busy working all the time. It was mostly Mom, you know. But when he saw Tony playing football, he was a proud man. He was happy.
The Big Apple, as they call it. Applejack, my dad. The Big Apple.
The Quip is a ghost town for Tony now.
But this is the Funky Four Corners right here, man. 5th and Jefferson. At that 5th and Jefferson, and they had clubs, Swingers Lounge, Olympian Club. After hours, that was the spot. Right here, boy, it was hot. My dad would tell you about that. I'm sure he got some great stories if he was here to tell you about that.
30 years ago, this was Applejack Dorsett's town. Everyone knew his youngest son had a chance for a future beyond the mill.
Woody Hayes visited our school here about 3 times. Joe Paterno. I mean, you go down, you know, and these people wanted him.
I was sitting in the press box. So a couple of my buddies, a couple of people from Pitt, and Joe Paterno and Bino Cook were sitting in the same little press box area. He had a couple of moves there that I had not seen. And he had speed. It was amazing. And a couple of my buddies were screaming. I said, shh. I pinched him on the thigh, one of them on each side. I said, shh. I didn't want Paterno to know that we were so excited about this.
I never forget one very prominent coach coming to me and opening up an envelope full of money. I mean, just full of it, and just said, if this is what you want, there's a lot more where this comes from.
Before he made up his mind, Tony Dorsett would give the hometown fans one last thrill.
He never would showboat, except the last game of the year. He starts his high-stepping dancing. I just glared at him. He said, the guys on the team told me that if I ever broke a long touchdown, that I would be afraid to dance. So he said, I couldn't let those guys down.
From Hopewell to the Hall of Fame, Hawkeye Dorsett played each down to earn the respect of just one man.
He was closer to my older brothers than with me. Man, it's just like, God, he took something away from me that I so dearly needed and wanted, was that closeness with my dad.
Tony Dorsett arrived in Dallas full of doubt.
One of the waitresses started throwing the N-word at me.
But left behind a legacy of greatness.
Every time he touched the ball, he could take it the distance.
Beyond the Glory, tonight on Fox Sports Net.
Homecoming weekend, 2003 at the University of Pittsburgh. The Panthers' favorite son has come home for yet another honor. Number 33 did so much for this program, they renamed the street in front of Heinz Field.
doesn't forget who he was and where he came from. Even though he can pretty much go anywhere he wants in the country and everybody knows who he is.
In 1972, Tony Dorsett could have gone anywhere in the country to play football. But he had another decision on his hands.
My childhood sweetheart, Karen Castelo, got pregnant. I started talking to people that were advising me, and they were saying, just go to college for a year, see what that's all about. Don't rush into that. You may be putting too much pressure on yourself.
Tony put off the wedding plans, but stayed close to home. The Pitt campus was only 19 miles from Aliquippa.
His mother, Myrtle Dorsett, was very influential to Tony, because his dad was a hard worker. He worked in the steel mills. We saw very little of him, but we saw Myrtle Dorsett many times.
I tell you, that mama's boy deal again, I wasn't going far from my mom.
He agreed to play for first-year head coach Johnny Majors at one of the worst football programs in the nation.
When I took the job in 1973, they had not been to a bowl game in 17 years. And I don't believe I ever worked a team as hard, certainly no harder than I did the 1973 team.
They just literally kicked the living crap out of us for 3 weeks straight, and probably about 40 guys quit that team.
But the good ones stayed, and I told players, as I normally did, those who stay will play. Those who play will be champions.
Every homecoming, we have a varsity letter club dinner where all the former letter winners in all sports come back to the university.
From the sport of football, Anthony Tony Dorsett.
It's been 3 decades since Tony Dorsett first wore the blue and gold.
You know, coming here as a freshman, you know, to go down there to Georgia, first ball game, and, you know, I'm 150 pounds, and I get off this bus and we cross those tracks, and you look out there, there's a sea of red and white. They're all white. And I was scared.
Tony rushed for over 100 yards and led the underdog Panthers to a 7-7 tie.
We felt like we lost the game, and you know, Coach Majors and the staff's ecstatic because no one expected us to go down there and do that kind of thing.
Knowing and believing that we were going to be that competitive that quickly.
A college phenom was born that day. But September 15th, 1973 holds a far greater significance for Tony Dorsett.
We get back to Pittsburgh, my brother's there, he said, your father. I said, what? You know, I was basically born the same day as my dad's first college game, so it's pretty much all I knew.
Little Anthony had no idea that his dad would become the greatest running back in college football history. No one team got run over more than the Fighting Irish of Notre Dame.
His freshman year, he broke the all-time record against them at Billy Vessel's. Oklahoma had.
Paul Hornung from Notre Dame may be as much responsible for me becoming a consensus All-American as a freshman as anybody, because he was ranting and raving that this kid is not an All-American. I don't know what an All-American is.
His junior year, TD bested his own record, running for 303 yards against the Fighting Irish.
Paul Hornung said, well, next year we're getting up at our stadium, and there's no way Tony's going to rush for more than 100 yards, and if he does, I'm going to jump out of the press box.
From Notre Dame Stadium in South Bend, Indiana, the opening game of 1976 for the...
Our first play was a little simple counter dive. He hit the line of scrimmage, Jackson and turned on the speed. He was amazing.
The whole offensive line's down the field, and all of us looking up and seeing whether Paul's going to get ready to jump out of the press box or not.
Majors pulled Dorsett in the fourth quarter with the game out of reach. He'd already gained 181 yards.
Throughout my 4 years there, I set an NC2A record for the most yards rushing against a common opponent. Could have been more, too, if Johnny would have been so nice to pulling me out of the game.
By the 7th game of his senior season, no one in the history of NCAA football had run for more yards than the kid they called Hawk from Aliquippa, PA.
After he broke the record, the Navy cadets came over. They asked me could they bring Tony over and let the midshipmen recognize him.
But they're going to congratulate Tony Dorsett. Even the Navy cannon has gone off. Tony Dorsett has become the all-time leading rusher in the history of football.
The Naval Academy saluted me. They shot the cannons for me. My mom and dad came down. They escorted them down on the field, and I'll never forget. Makes me want to cry now, man. I just started bawling. I just crying. And my dad just patted me on my back, man. It was a great experience.
It's an honor and a pleasure for me to be here tonight.
2 months later, he was awarded the Heisman Trophy by a landslide. But the undefeated Pitt Panthers of 1976 had one more game to play. One last chance to make Coach Major's pledge stand up.
Our team had been together 4 years. We played Georgia our very first game as freshmen, and it was Georgia again as seniors and for the national championship.
4 years ago, they'd played to a tie. This time, it wasn't even close.
I believe he was the greatest football player I ever saw. And I thought the 76 team was one of the great football teams in football history.
He would join another great team just 6 months later. But Dallas, Texas was a long way from the Quip.
One of the waitresses started throwing the N-word at me, calling me all these racial slurs.
We were outnumbered. I mean, it was one of those situations, it was just, you know, we had really no business being in there.
He was the most dangerous man on America's team.
On 3rd and 3, he's going to throw it back to the goal line. Pass is tipped. Caught by Dorsett anyway. The 15. Dorsett at the 20. Makes a tackle to the 30. Down the near sideline to the 40. Cuts back to the middle of the field. He may go all the way.
But Tony Dorsett was a star before he ever wore one.
Tony came in with the fur coat, the beginning of the fur coat era in the Dallas Cowboy organization, I guess.
He had this Lincoln that was about, 200 yards long. I mean, I've never seen a front end on a Lincoln like that in my life. I thought the pimps came from Oakland, California, but yet I saw they came from Pittsburgh.
In 1977, the Dallas Cowboys made a trade with Seattle to bring college football's all-time leading rusher to Dallas.
Back in those days, I guess he broke the barrier in the Dallas Cowboy franchise in terms of getting money when he signed that $1 million contract.
Now, I'm going to Texas where they got Cadillacs with horns on them. I'm like, man, how am I going to fit in?
He didn't.
The first day, I'm like, man, I'm going out and let them know that I'm here.
For us, two black guys to walk in a country western bar in Dallas is like, whoa, what are we doing in here?
We go over there, and it was ladies' night. And from Aliquippa, man, we didn't have no bars when they had ladies' nights and ladies getting free drinks.
We were kind of breaking the color line to a degree, so to speak. And I remember one guy was kind of messing with Tony.
And I was one of these guys that said, look, I know where I'm at, but I ain't backing down for nothing. ain't creating anything, but I ain't backing down.
Next thing I know, I look up, Dorsett has picked this guy up over his head and slings him across the bar.
It was a mess. That was my first day here, and I got in some more altercations right after that, man. It was just like everywhere I went, it seemed like somebody was just waiting for Tony Dorsett to come into play so they could start something with me.
TD found it hard to fit in on the football field as well.
Coach Landry doesn't, I mean, he didn't believe in rookies starting.
Not even $1 million running back. When he did play, his natural talent overshadowed Coach Landry's intricate offensive system.
Tony gets up there and he says, guys, Tony's a different runner. He said, what we're gonna have to do is just put our hats on the right people, just keep our hats on them. Tony's gonna run to what he sees.
The rookie would run the Cowboys right into the Super Bowl.
We knew Denver had a great defense. We had played them, finished the regular season against Denver. It was a very close game. We had a pretty conservative offense and great defense that hopefully we could let Tony run the football, and that's what he did.
Again to Dorsett, comes into the middle. He comes inside the 40, cuts to the 45, to the 50.
He ran the ball very well. He ran inside. I think the first touchdown, he just busted it inside.
Tailback takes and gives off inside to Dorsett, coming around to the right to the 10, to the 5. Touchdown! Tony Dorsett.
TD and the Cowboys never looked back.
Come out of college in 1 year, win a national championship, the Heisman Trophy, and the Super Bowl. I mean, you're pretty much setting yourself up for failure for the rest of your career because, you know, what else can you accomplish after that?
But a 1,000-yard rookie campaign and a Super Bowl ring brought him very little respect in the Lone Star State. The next season, during a home game, he was told by the organization of a threat against his life.
Gilbert said, oh, well, we get these kind of threats all the time in the National Football League. I said, I don't know about the National Football League, but I don't get these kind of death threats. I don't get these kind of threats. And I said, furthermore, they tried to kill the president down here. What make you think they won't shoot my black ass?
I remember him coming walking by me, telling me, hey, man, there's a death threat on my life. I said, what are you doing by me? You know, go over there with those guys over there.
And guys started moving away from me, so when they moved, I would move with them. Man, get away from me, man, get away from me. Oh, man, they don't get me, they don't get you, too.
He was like on pins and needles, but he had a hell of a game that game.
It would happen again at the 1979 Super Bowl.
I was coming down here young, gifted, and black, and I was running my mouth. And, you know, and maybe some people took offense to that. I really hate to think that was the case. I remember just thinking it might have been somebody that was a fan of the opposition.
It would be touchdown Tony Dorsett's last Super Bowl appearance. He was 24.
We went to 3 more championship games, man, and you would think out of those 3 championship games we'd at least get lucky and win one of them to get back to the big dance again, but it never happened.
He would become the first player ever to gain more than 1,000 yards in each of his first 5 seasons. He reached that mark, 8 of his first 9.
I really don't think he gets his just due. You know, and I tell him that all the time. I tell him I think he made the game look a little too easy sometimes.
The last days of training camp of the 1984 season, Tony got a call from home.
Mother got on the phone, and she told me about what happened, that my dad, he had a stroke.
It was really difficult on him because, you know, you didn't look for Wes Dorsett to die. No, he just didn't die. You know, he was the one that held the family together.
Doctors were saying this and that, about his, brain dead or this and that. If he comes out of it, it's gonna be a vegetable, all these negative things. And I said, Mom, I believe in miracles.
And I looked at him and I said, oh, your dad is already dead. I said, the only thing keeping his breathing is that machine he's on. But there wasn't nothing I could do for him. So I had that stroke, and that was it, honey.
It was tough on me, and even to this day, I couldn't tell you the day my dad died. I blanked it totally out of my mind. I said, I do not want to experience this feeling every year. I wish my dad could have been around to experience some of the things I've experienced.
Tony Dorsett arrived in Dallas, a Heisman winner, full of doubt.
One of the waitresses started throwing the N-word at me, calling me all these racial slurs.
But left behind a legacy of greatness.
Every time he touched the ball, he could take it the distance.
And as his fame grew, so did his fears.
They tried to kill the president down there. What made you think they won't shoot me?
Beyond the Glory, next on Fox Sports Net.
In football, Tony Dorsett found an escape from his father's way of life.
Dorsett dances in the secondary and hits left. The 30, comes right.
But 3 years after Wes Dorsett's death, his famous son was haunted by the working man's legacy.
You know, you come from the Northeast, you're from Pittsburgh. You know what unions are all about, man. I remember my dad worked at J&L Steel Mill. I know what unions are all about.
In September 1987, the Players Association went on strike, demanding higher pay, increased pension benefits, and the right of free agency. The owners responded by hiring replacements. Players that crossed the picket lines were labeled scabs.
Tony, you make about $45,000 a game. This one's going to cost you. Are you 100% behind the strike?
Sometimes you question yourself whether or not you should do these things, but if you're going to be together as a team, as a union, then you must do whatever the union requires you to do.
I was talking a lot of smack, a lot of noise. I called one of our major players Captain Scab and all this, that, and the other, and I got him in a real big heated argument at one of the meetings.
But just weeks before the strike, Tony had agreed to one final contract with the Cowboys. Now, that multi-million-dollar deal was in jeopardy.
It was threatened that they would take that away from him. When I told the guys and I told the union, like, look, when they seen what that package was, you know, with an annuity that's still paying me even to this day as we speak, it's like, hey, man, you know, yeah, you know, you got to go back in. You got to do it.
His father's union in Aliquippa, Pennsylvania, won the right to bargain collectively 50 years before in a landmark Supreme Court decision. Tony's union ended its strike after 24 days without winning a single concession.
I felt about this big. That was bad. Yeah, man. Everything's shut down in here though now, isn't it? Yeah. Cut it out. This is where the work was, man. J&L Steel Mill.
Wes Dorsett didn't live long enough to see his steel mill torn to the ground, his way of life lost to technology and free trade. 1987, Tony Dorsett's brand of football was considered outdated in Dallas. The Cowboys turned to a bigger, stronger Heisman winner, Herschel Walker.
That's just the nature of the game, you know what I mean? And unfortunately, it happened to my dad. It's happened to Joe Montana. It's happened to Jerry Rice. It's happened to, you know, some of the greatest players to play this game.
Tony would play one more season. As a Denver Bronco, he would surpass the great Jim Brown in career rushing yards. He retired in the fall of 1989 after suffering a knee injury in training camp.
I love the game, but I don't miss it. The human body wasn't made for this type of abuse anyway, so I'm fortunate enough to have been able to do what I've done for so many years, and I thank God for it.
Tony Dorsett is the only football player in history who's won 5 great honors. He's the only player who's ever won the Heisman Trophy, played for a National Collegiate Championship team, for an NFL Super Bowl championship team, and has been inducted into both the collegiate and the professional football Hall of Fame.
The honor that may matter most is the one he received back home. In the fall of 2001, Hopewell High renamed its football field after number 33.
I was at a predominantly white high school. I never expected it. Caught me totally off guard. I wish my dad could have been there, man. Big Apple would have been big time. He would have been so happy for his baby boy.